Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. Well, I am your running host, Dean Thompson. What does it mean to be relentless? Well, it is important to our running and our faith, so we'll talk about it. And did you ever use those flotation devices that fit on your arms when you were a kid? We're going to talk about how they are related to running and faith as well. And joining me once again is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. How was your week?
It's been a good week. You know, I'm doing this training, this high mileage stuff right now. So I ran 82 miles last week.
Oh, wow.
Which is, that's the most I've run in a little over a year.
Yeah.
So, and that was after 3 weeks of over 70 miles. So,
wow. Is your body adjusting well?
It's beginning to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to force it into submission.
That's what I'm doing. It's working.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
So you're getting excited for it. So what's the countdown right now?
It's 4 months away almost.
It's in May, isn't it?
Yeah. It's in May. So it's a while away. What about this week's Couch to Marathon group? We got them started up,
That's
right?
That's exciting. Yeah. We're starting the Couch to Marathon actually today as we're recording, and then we're graduating last year's Couch to Marathon this coming Saturday out in, is it Greenville, Mississippi? Is that where we're going? I don't even know.
Yeah.
You were asking me where we were staying, and I was like, I don't know. Gay and Holly, they do a great job of taking care of all that, and Angie with logistics. But yeah, we got a crowd coming out there, and this is going to be, I'm going to give her a shout out. This is going to be Gay's first marathon. Gay Coker that works with us. She was in the very first ever Run for God class, and man, she's inspiring.
Yeah.
She really is. She did her 20 miler, last weekend, and I was really proud of her. Sunday morning I saw her at church, and she said I was on the couch yesterday with a migraine headache. She did 20 miles and then she dropped back this week to 10, kind of a taper in. She said, I didn't get my run in, but I'm going to get it in today. So she texted me last night, and she got it in a faster pace than she was hoping to do. So
good for her.
She's like so many others in run clubs. She's just kept her head down. She's got the work in. It's not been, it's not been fancy. It's not been exciting. She's just put her head down and done the work, which is what it takes.
That's right.
If you're hoping that it's going to be exciting the whole time, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Anything worth doing is kind of drudgery sometimes. We're going to talk about that in this podcast.
Yeah.
But she's done it. I mean, literally the hay's in the barn for her and so many others that are graduating this weekend. So if you're out there and you're running a marathon in Mississippi or anywhere else this coming week and you've been on the Couch to Marathon, congratulations. Even if something were to happen, I hope that doesn't. But if something were to happen, you've done it. You've done the work.
And
if you've gotten to here, you've done it.
And it's still worth it.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I
sure.
can't wait to see you.
But it's going to be incredible to hear all the stories that I know are going to come flooding in.
That's right.
After next week. So we want to hear them.
Amen. All right.
Hey, let's talk about this week's sponsor at Run for God. We like to do business with locally owned businesses when it's practical. One Source Business Products is Dalton's only locally owned office supply company. If you're looking for office supplies, furniture, printing, janitorial, custom forms, or stamps, they have you covered, and the prices are right. That's why they compare and you save. You can look them up, Barry and his whole team, at onesourcebp.com. That's onesourcebp.com. And thanks to Barry and his whole team. Barry goes to church with me. Just a great, godly business here in the Dalton area. But you can look them up and buy products anywhere you live. So if you don't have a office supply company near you, give them a look.
Absolutely. Well, last week's post comes from the Run Club Run Club social page.
Right.
And it's from Monica Masters. And she said this: I was a member to Run for God and left. I completed a year, completed the marathon, and thought, well, now I'm done. How crazy. I missed it. I missed reading the post and listening to Dean and Mitchell and all the encouragement. Run for God is so much more than just completing a challenge. It's a community of fellow believers lifting each other up. Running is just a bonus. I rejoined last night and am so excited to begin again.
This just made my week when I read this.
Right.
I think Angie sent it to us. She saw it first.
Yeah.
And she sent it to us. And it's Monica's so right. You know, if you go through the Couch to Marathon with us or any of the trainings, so we have a lot of people who just started the 5K challenge. If you go through those programs and you run your race and you think, well, I'm done, then just like she said, you've missed it.
Yep.
You've missed the point. This is so much more than running. It's kind of like church. You know, church is so much more than a message.
Yeah.
It's a community.
Yeah.
It's people you talk to, people you share with, people you laugh with, you cry with. And that's what happens here in Run Club. And that's why it really warmed my heart to see this. Not that I wanted her to do something and be missing something, but that she recognized what we all see, and that's that there's a lot more than running going on here. Yeah. We need to start using that as a marketing phrase, because we've said it organically for so long now that it's true. There is so much more than running going on here.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're in the Couch to Marathon plan and you're just getting started, if you're in the 5K challenge and you're just getting started, please look for that, because you can find it easily. I mean, it'll slap you in the face, but you do have to make a little bit of effort to see it. You got to get on the Facebook page or the Run Club social page, and you got to see it for yourself.
You put yourself out there.
Yes, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Now, it's okay if you're like me. I rarely post on Facebook, but I'll stalk Facebook. And if you're a Facebook stalker, that's
glad you admit that, Dean.
Yeah, that's okay. So don't feel bad about that either. But we would love to hear from you, and so many other people would love to hear from you too. So don't be afraid, like you said, to put yourself out there.
Because whether you know it or not, you have something to give.
Yep.
And that gift can be encouragement to somebody else. Maybe it's something you've just gone through and it hurt and you've got scars from it. Guess what? There's so many people that can be encouraged by that.
Yep.
That you made it through it. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with running. Now, obviously, that's up to people how much they share. But we've created a pretty safe place in Run Club. You know, it's people get very transparent in there, and that's why it's so special.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And that's what I use it for. Is I'll post a video every once in a while of my thoughts while I was out running. Something hit me, and I thought, I'm going to share this.
You have a lot of those, don't you?
And
Dean's thoughts.
Yeah, a little too much sometimes. My wife probably tell you, I wish Dean would shut up with his thoughts occasionally. All right, trivia question from last week. And I said, here is a question that will require some digging. We used to hear about the lactic acid in our legs when I was young. It was what supposedly made you sore. But they have found that it is not lactic acid that makes you sore. What does? Did you hear that all the time when you were young? When I was growing up, we lactic acid, I still hear about it. Lactic acid building up in your legs, making you sore. But that's not what makes you sore. The truth is I never had lactic acid in my legs the next day, because you don't. And so I found this great explanation from Houston Medical. So here's what they say. Whether you look forward to your workouts or not, it seems that we all dread feeling sore afterwards. I'm asked if lactic buildup causes sore muscles almost every single day, says Dr. Corbin Hett, physical therapist at Houston Methodist. It's something many of us grew up hearing from coaches or whoever, so people want to know how to reduce this buildup so they never have to be sore at all. It's not true, however. If you've got questions about muscle soreness from what's actually causing it to whether or not it can be prevented, you're not alone. Fortunately, it's something Dr. Het says has been studied in detail and is a topic he could talk about for hours. So what does lactic acid have to do with muscle soreness anyways? Your muscles need energy to move. By the way they generate energy, but the way they generate energy can vary depending on the type of workout you're doing. During aerobic exercise such as walking, light jogging, or casual biking, your muscles use oxygen to make the energy they need. During vigorous exercise like sprinting, plyometrics, weightlifting, and high-intensity interval training, your muscles make this energy anaerobically, meaning in the absence of oxygen. This happens because oxygen can't get to the muscles fast enough to keep up with the amount of energy the muscles need. When your muscles make energy anaerobically, lactic acid is created as a byproduct, says Dr. Het. It does build up in the muscle during exercise, and your muscle can be chock full of it by the time you finish a strenuous workout. But generally, all of this lactic acid is gone within about an hour afterwards. Put simply, lactic acid clears out well before muscle soreness ever even begins. And Dr. Het adds that the link between lactic acid buildup during exercise and muscle soreness after exercise is one that's been almost completely disproven. In fact, lactic acid buildup after a hard workout might actually cue muscle regeneration, acting as a signal to your body that your muscles have worked really hard and need to be repaired and rebuilt, Dr. Het adds. If anything, you want lactic acid buildup because the more you have, the more your body understands that the area needs attention. So why do muscles get sore then? Muscle soreness occurs because muscle and the connective tissue around it get damaged during exercises, explained Dr. Het. This is completely normal and nothing to worry about, though. In fact, it's needed for muscle growth since muscle is built back stronger during this repair process. This damage comes in the form of tiny micro tears, which trigger inflammatory responses. So that soreness you feel after a hard workout, it's an unfortunate consequences both of this damage and the inflammatory processes needed to heal it, not lactic acid buildup. Plus, the delayed nature of sore muscles provides yet another strike against the lactic acid theory. So, muscle soreness comes from we're beating our muscles up.
Yeah, but I got a problem with this article because I do, and I think because there's two different things. I think the what's the word I'm looking for? The misconception is that rigorous exercise causes you to get sore. And while that is not correct, there's actually two different things going on at the end of, say, a hard race. Mm-hmm. And there's the muscle soreness, and then there's what's going on right there in that moment. Mm-hmm. So when you get done with a hard effort and you're nauseous, you're cramping, not sore, you're cramping, all of those things that you feel after a hard effort, that is lactate. Mm-hmm. That is, it's called lactic acidosis, is why, because I looked it up this morning, because I was reading this and I was like, what he's saying is technically correct, but I think there's two different things happening. So like an ice bath, you hear people say, get an ice bath, that'll flush the lactic acid out. Well, that does. That will help. That'll increase your blood pressure, which will help to flush that acid out, which will stop the cramping, but it may not actually fix the soreness. But it can help fix the soreness because at the same time it's flushing that out, it's reducing inflammation, which even in his narrative here, he says that that's the cause of soreness. Well, ice will reduce inflammation. So I think it's not that I don't like this. I think it's just focused on one part. But when you get done with a race and you feel horrible and you're on the ground and everything's cramping, that is lactate.
Well, it's not the lactate that's causing the cramping, though. The buildup of lactate may make you hurt a little bit, but it's not the lactate that makes the pain. It's the muscle soreness that makes the pain. It's the muscles. The muscles are cramping because the muscles have been overworked. and they can't get enough energy.
Yeah, I mean, I read some
going.
other stuff this morning. WebMD was one that I pulled some stuff up on, and I really think
see what you're
there's
saying.
a couple different things. There's a lot going on, really, but there's two main things going on. It's lactic acidosis, which really affects the within that hour that he's talking about.
Right.
Until all that gets out, and you think about it, when you get done, sometimes it's an hour before you want to even talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's a byproduct of
It is, yeah.
the lactic
It
acid.
is.
And then what happens the next day, this article's correct. It really has nothing to do with, but people say, well, I need to take an ice bath so I won't be as sore tomorrow. Well, that's kind of true, but it's not because of the lactic acid. It's because you're kind of staying off inflammation.
Yeah, I guess it depends on
But it could help today with the cramping and just the way you feel. So, I don't know.
I guess I wrote the question, right? So my thoughts on the question was, what makes you sore the next day?
Right.
That's not what I said.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I said what makes you sore.
Right.
And so, yes,
Yeah.
that there's a difference between what makes you sore today and
Yeah.
what makes you sore tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
I just thought it was important to
Yeah.
clarify that.
That's a good point.
You know, because a lot of people will say, well, I don't need to take an ice bath now. No, an ice bath couldn't be. I mean, if for any reason, it makes you feel good when you get out.
Yeah.
And so anyway, you know how I am. I've got a critical eye of
I like
any
it.
article I read.
Good stuff.
As I think you do too. We both like to try to poke holes in them.
100%.
Yeah.
Upward Sports Run for God Run Club is the best way to stay motivated for your fitness journey and your faith journey. You get these weekly podcasts, but there is so much more. We have proven training plans available for you, whether you're just at the beginning of your fitness quest or you've been running for 20 years. We have something for everyone, and it doesn't matter where you are with God either. We have something for you there, too. If you're not a member, join today at runforgod.com. It is the best value you will find. All right, we're back and we talk about it all the time. You've got a story and we want to hear it. So make sure, go to runforgod.com, go to the spot where it says submit your story and submit your story because we want to hear it.
Hey, you kind of jumped right over the Bible in a year. I saw that in your notes. For all of you out there who think the Bible in a year has to start on January 1, we now have it to where you can start it at any time. Mm-hmm. So I've heard from a lot of people who really enjoyed what Dean did with the Bible in a year. You know, it's butter voice Dean. Listening to him talk for a whole year, reading through the Bible. But it's a great, I mean, you put a ton of work into that. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of people compliment on how great it was. So if you're out there and you've heard us talk about the Bible in a year, you don't have to start the Bible in a year on January 1. Just like you don't have to start any of our challenges on January 1. We have we have it set up to where you can start at any time. So go check that out, the Bible in a year, and you can start it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you tell somebody, maybe somebody who is not an experienced runner, when they ask, what's a good time for a marathon?
You know, I read that question, and I mean, for me, for a long time, I've always kind of thought 4 hours, but that was just always my goal when I started running. Mm-hmm. For me, that was what I wanted to hit, and I reached that goal one day. And but to your point in here, it's kind of a loaded question.
It is.
It's kind of like, what's the best color?
Yeah,
you know,
it really.
I know what mine is. I know mine's blue.
Yeah.
But you know, so it's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. Because if you look at it, I mean, you can look at, okay, the average marathon time in the world is 4:29. That's what the average is when you take everybody who's run a marathon, you average them all out, it's 4:29. Mm-hmm. You can get more specific and say, okay, if you're male, the average is 4:21. If you're female, the average is 4:48. But then you have to take into account, well, how old are you? Because that makes a difference. How long have you been running? How fit are you in general? Right? All of those things make a difference.
And how big is your want to button?
And how big is your want to? That's another one. Yeah. There's a gazillion different questions, right? Now, if you take me, my best marathon time is 2:39. So if I run a 3:20 marathon, I am going to be really disappointed. That's an epic fail in my book, right? But if you ran a 3:20 marathon,
I'll be doing backflips and cartwheels.
right.
Once the lactic acid wears off.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's not to talk down to or about anybody, but then you take me, my 239, and the pros look at that like it's a joke.
Yeah.
They do that in training. It's no big deal to them. And so everything is just relative.
Sure.
So here's what I want to say. If you have a marathon time, if you have crossed a marathon finish line, that's a good time because you have beaten 99% of the people in the world.
Well, here's a good example. Next Saturday, as of this recording, we're headed to Mississippi, and I'm going to run Gay's first marathon with her. Now, that may be a mistake because I'm not trained up for a marathon, but I'm going to do it with her. Her goal is to run it in 7.5 hours. I'm going to be more excited for Gay running 7.5 hours than when I broke 4 hours. I'm going to be twice as happy.
Yep.
Because of what it means. That's the point is my 4 hours, you're 239. It was great for you. 4 hours is great for me. And 7.5 hours is incredible for Gay. And that's the point. We get hung up on numbers. We get hung up on comparison. It's not what all this is about. It's about the achievement in setting a goal and marking a date on your calendar and hitting it. And that's what it's all about. It's the perseverance that we're going to talk about.
Yep. Now, there's nothing wrong. If you want to focus on getting faster and then running, that's great. But there's nothing wrong with just wanting to get across the finish line.
Right.
And,
But again, if you go through our whole couch to marathon, just like, I forget the lady's name in the post that you just said, and let's say you run a 2:39 marathon and you got nothing else out of it, you missed it.
You missed it. That's right.
You got an incredible time, but you missed everything.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Good point. Well, what does the word relentless mean? Well, it's an adjective, and the dictionary says it means, one definition is not easing or slackening, maintaining speed, vigor, etc. Or a second definition, unyieldingly severe, strict, or harsh. Well, this week's story is about being relentless. It comes to us from Rich Glass, and it's called Mr. Relentless. My marathon in April 2023 already promised to be memorable. It was my hometown of Oklahoma City, and the route went next to both of my childhood homes. My parents would be standing in the driveway of house number 2 at about mile 14. I wasn't expecting the added bonus, but it was great. At the expo event the day before, there was a special booth. When I saw it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, that I was seeing a man whose poster hangs in my office. It was the U.S. marathon great Bill Rogers. He won 4 New York and 4 Boston marathons over 4 decades ago. I don't think the other runners appreciated this rare opportunity because there was no crowd of people. We talked for about 15 minutes. He confessed that after running the 5K fun run that morning, he felt like he had run 5 miles. Of course, he is age 75 now. In his prime, Bill ran right at 2 hours and 10 minutes at New York and 2:09:27 at Boston. That would easily place him in the top 10 of U.S. marathoners today. That's remarkable considering he lacked the nutrition, training, shoes, and other advances that current runners enjoy today. In his autobiography, he pointed out that inspiration is the key to success in running. He said, the athlete receives inspiration in many different forms and from many a quarter. You receive a more personal source of inspiration from the people around you. To be successful at a high level, you need all types of inspiration. I peppered him with all sorts of questions. I asked him if he likes his nickname, Boston Billy. He smiled and reminded me that he was from Hartford, Connecticut. Alas, I did not ask him if he knew Jesus. He signed a photo with this inscription, "Rich, good to meet you and talk marathon. Let's run forever." Maybe we running believers will have the opportunity. I read in Revelation 21 that the new Jerusalem will be paved with pure gold, like transparent glass. I think we won't need our New Balances there. Back to my poster. It displays a single letter in large type, relentless. The quote below it sums up this quality. To be a consistent winner means preparing not just one day, 1 month, or even 1 year, but for a lifetime. When I think about relentless Bible heroes, I think of Elisha, the protege of Elijah the prophet. He left a thriving farming business to follow Elijah. In 2 Kings 3, Elijah tried to discourage him 3 times not to follow him as he got ready to depart this earth. Elisha remained faithful, saw Elijah's flaming chariot exit, and received a double portion of Elijah's spirit as a result. We should all be like Boston Billy as runners and like Elisha as Christians. Be relentless.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I don't really know a lot about
Boston Billy.
Bill Rogers, yeah.
I've met him.
Yeah?
Yeah. And just like he said, he's so personable. He's just, he seems, a lot of these guys, you meet them and they seem like they're like these magical people. Mm-hmm. Bill just seems like a dude. He just seems like a guy that just happens to be able to run fast.
Yeah.
And I've always
the guy
liked
you
him.
would like to hang out with.
Yes. Yeah. I like this sentiment. The relentless is kind of a little bit synonymous with the word consistency, which is
I think relentless sometimes gets a bad rap because it's used in a bad connotation sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it's a great word.
Yeah,
for sure.
And what relentless means? It's getting out the door and going for that run when you don't feel like it. Sure. That's being relentless. It's not
kind of
giving
like consistency with grit.
Yeah,
that's relentless.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. Combining the two. Yeah. People who are relentless, they don't use their circumstances to make excuses not to do something. And that's a good thing. I was running with Travis last week. Travis Vaughn, he's with Upward. He was in town, and we went and did a workout in the morning. But he gets his runs in early in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, you know me. I don't run in the morning. Yeah. I like running in the evening. But do you think Travis likes getting up at 5 a.m. to run in the morning?
Of course not.
Of course not. And I asked him. I said, well, why do you do your runs in the morning? And of course, what did he tell me? He said, so I can spend time with my family because I would feel guilty going out to run in the afternoon. That's being relentless.
Yeah.
It's getting up at 5 a.m. when you don't feel like it and doing it anyway to reach goals.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. And he's being relentless.
Sure.
I like it. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." Isn't that a
consistency?
Yeah. That's a great verse for runners and walkers for several reasons. But it reminds me that doing the right thing, doing the thing that's good for you, whatever that is, it makes a difference, even when you can't tell. Sometimes you can't tell you're making a difference, right? So last week, I remember I got an email last week, and the way the guy worded it like, he said, keep doing what you're doing. It's making a difference.
Right.
We get people tell us, you do a great job, that we hear, but I really like the sentiment of keep it up because you're making a difference.
Yeah.
And you got to know that when you do things, you're making a difference.
Well, that's why it's so good to write these things down, to benchmark, to journal, to do all these things, because, there's always going to come time in your running life and your walk with Christ and whatever it is that you feel like you're not making a difference, that you're not making any progress. I almost said progress. We're watching this Canadian show right now and they say progress. But you feel like you're not making progress, and sometimes it takes looking back. And, when you feel when you're in the, when you're in the valley.
Yeah.
And you're like, God is nowhere around. Well, sometimes you just look back and you see the last valley you were in, or you see the last time you ran a great race, and you know, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. It's just hard right now. And so, writing that stuff down, journaling it in whatever form you do it, there's so many ways to do it nowadays, but the key is that you're doing it.
Yeah. And there's days when, last week before last, I think it was, I did a 10-mile run at 9:30 pace. I've never run that slow in my life, but I did it because
a lot of people are going, seriously, Dean? Seriously,
I know, and I'm sorry. That's
what we were just talking about a while ago for you.
Yeah,
but that has no bearing on anybody else.
Right. But my brain is trying to tell me you're not doing yourself any good running at this pace. But I am. Mm-hmm. And we need to keep reminding ourselves that even when things are hard and we don't feel like it, it's still worth it because it's still making a difference.
Still building those roadways.
Yes. I do the live stream and all the stuff we do at our church, the presentation side of things. And, there for a long time, we got almost nobody to watch our live stream. Nobody was really going back and watching it later. And, after a while you get to thinking, is this even worth it? Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward now a couple of years later and, people are watching it. There's more people watching it when it's live, but there's also a lot of people going back and watching it later. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't kept doing all that for the time that we did it, then we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today, right? Mm-hmm. We would have had to start over. You're making a difference. When you do those things, you're making a difference even when it feels like you're not.
Yeah.
Hebrews 10:39, but we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls.
I mean, this is just another verse that basically in my mind says everything worth doing gets hard at some point because it's true. Mm-hmm. No one signs up for a marathon and expects things to be easy. The Bible tells us when we sign up to be a Christ follower that it's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. Everything worth doing. I don't know if I can think of anything that's worth doing that doesn't get hard.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning. What is there out there that is very rewarding that's not hard?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that you can buy that are very rewarding, but you had to earn the money to be able to buy it. So, but that's, for some reason, we desire that. And I get it, we desire it, but I think back to, getting things for free. We've done free races before. Mm-hmm. We used to we did partner with the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association one time and did a My Hope America, and it was free. And we had so many people sign up and only half showed up.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was free. They weren't invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was too easy. And I just think that makes the point that we should look forward to hard things. Not that we're going to enjoy them.
Yeah.
But we should look forward to them.
Yeah.
Just like that next 12 by 800 workout you're going to do. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But it's going to be worth it.
Well, those runs I was talking about when I don't feel like getting out the door. I decided at the beginning of the year I was going to run 10 miles a day at least for the first month of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm almost through that month. There have been days where I didn't want to get up. I did not want to do it.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Yesterday was one of those days actually. So what I did yesterday is I kind of played with it a little bit, and I decided I was going to try to run within a certain heart rate zone. I don't usually use my heart rate. Sometimes in order to get yourself through those tough times, it helps to distract yourself with something else. So if that's what it takes, then do that. Whatever it takes to get through those hard things, it's worth it. 2 Timothy 2:15. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth.
I don't know why this passage made me think about this story. When I I can't remember if I was 15. I think I was 16. But one summer I worked at our local golf course, Knob North Golf Course here. And I worked in the maintenance grounds. So we mowed and drug greens and, we did all the yard work basically. And I'll never forget Danny. I can't remember Danny's last name. He was our boss. He was over maintenance. And we got done one day. And there was these two guys there was a couple places at Knob North. You've probably seen them when you've played golf up there. I know you've played there, but there's places where you can pull a cart and you're just kind of hidden. Nobody can see you. Well, there was these two guys that worked, but they would pull in there and they'd go to sleep. They'd sleep for an hour. And we called Danny Bookums because he was always riding around making sure everybody was doing their work. Well, anyway, there was this one day that we all got done and we were at the shop about to leave, and he rounded everybody up. I mean, it was all high school guys working down there. He said, "Man, I just want to tell y'all what a great job y'all were doing. Y'all really made a difference this summer." I mean, he was just over the top complimenting us.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of looking at those two guys, and they were just like so ashamed.
Yeah.
They never pulled down and went to sleep again.
Wow.
And I don't know this. I never asked Danny if he knew that those guys, if he really thought we were just doing a great job or if he was doing that on purpose. But it made me think about this verse, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I don't want to be the guy in heaven that just scraped in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what this verse is saying, but it's what it made me think about. Because we're all going to have to give an account. Saved or unsaved, we're going to give an account before God when we leave this earth. And I don't want to be caught sleeping.
Yeah.
Man,
that's a great...
I don't know if that's what he was doing, but looking back, how many years later, 30 years later now, I have to think that's what he was doing. He was reprimanding those guys without ever even saying a word to them. And it worked. It got them in gear.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think about this verse from the perspective of somebody who does the Couch to Marathon plan, somebody who goes and checks all the boxes, does every workout. They're getting the most from the program.
Sure.
Because we talk about jobs. There are a lot of people who try to get by with things on their jobs, but I want to get through with my job and I want to feel like I did something.
Yeah.
And I've never understood the mentality of just wanting to get by. But you'll get the most out of it. So you get the most out of being a Christian, when you participate fully, when you pray regularly, you read your Bible, you participate in groups with other believers, and you can say, well, I don't have to go to church to be a Christian. And you know what? You're right.
True.
You can be a Christian without going to church, but you're not participating fully. Mm-hmm. And you are not going to get everything you can out of your salvation if you're not participating fully.
Sure.
And not just church. It could be, there's 100 different things that we should all be doing, right? And we should be all participating in all the things. We always used to say, do all the things.
Do all the things, yeah.
That we should be doing all the things.
Well, it's just like, can you run a marathon by yourself? Can you train and run a marathon by yourself? Yes. But how many people do we talk to that says this was the difference for them? This club was the difference for them because it was the community. And it's the same way when I walk with Christ. I love it when I'm a hunter, and I love it when hunters say, well, I can talk to God in my deer stand. I don't need to go to church. You're right, but you're so wrong in so many ways. I mean, it's true. It's, do not forsake the gathering of believers. The church is people. The church is not necessarily a building, and I get that sentiment, but we need to come together because if we're doing this right, if we're doing Christian right, and I say it that way for a reason, then it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
If you're doing it, we just said it, nothing worth doing is easy. If you're doing Christian and it's easy, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Period.
Amen.
And if you're doing it right, it's hard. And when things are hard, you need other people. And to get other people in the Christian walk, it's our community of faith. And that, in modern days, I know they didn't have churches back then and they had small groups and houses and all that, but in modern times, the community of believers is the church. And we meet in a building where we can all talk and have community and love on each other and encourage each other. That's where all that happens. And you need to be there. Wherever that is in your community, be there.
We're going to get you to preach a message here in a minute. A question. Do you have an example of when you relentlessly pursued something in life, whether it be in running or faith related? What did you learn? This question made me think about a very specific thing that happened to me when I was in college. When I was in college, I had a class. It was some kind of a fitness class that everybody had to take. And you got measured on 4 things during that class. I don't remember all of them. I remember one of them being how many push-ups can you do in 2 minutes, for example. And out of those 4 things, 3 of them I was going to have no problem with at all. I was going to get not only maximum number of points, I was going to get bonus points because I wasn't going to have any problem with them. But there was one that was really, really hard for me. And what you had to do is it was about flexibility. So you had to sit with your feet against like a box and try to reach your toes or reach past your toes. If you had to at least reach your toes to pass, you had to reach 3 inches past your toes to get a perfect score, and you had to reach 6 inches past your toes to get extra points. And I remember I was determined because I am notoriously not flexible.
Me too.
I've never been flexible.
It's uncomfortable for me just to put my feet up against a wall like that.
Yes. That's I'm
that inflexible.
Yes. Yep. That's how I feel. But I was determined because when we started the class, I could not reach my toes. Mm-hmm. Well, I worked on it every day. Every day, every morning, I would get up and I would work on this stretch, trying to stretch. And I was relentless about it. I did it every single day. And by the end of the semester, I reached 6 inches past my toes. I couldn't even believe that I had done that. But it was a really good example of what you can do if you'll just put your head to something, put the effort in, and be relentless about it, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty relentless on most everything. Yeah. And a lot of times it's to a fault. We were laughing the other night. You know, Holly and I we're building a house right now. We're kind of downsizing, getting ready for the empty nest. And but it's like I don't want to do anything until this house is done. And so I'm just relentless. I'm like every bit of my free time I'm thinking about this house. And she was like, I forget what it. Oh, we went to it down near Atlanta to look at something on Friday evening, and she's like, you know, let's do this or this. I'm like, we gotta get this house done. And she was talking about like going out to eat or something. I'm like, we gotta get this house done. And so sometimes I take relentless to tunnel vision, which is not good. But yeah, I mean, I think in life we have to have maybe not. We don't need to get into tunnel vision, but relentless is a muscle that you can build. That is something that you can get better, just like you're stretching. Yeah. You can force yourself to do it, and it always produces great things.
Yeah, for sure. Another question. The opposite of relentless is giving up. Can you remember a time when giving up seemed to be the right thing at the time, but later proved to have negative consequences? You know, I don't recall giving up on much, especially anything of any significance. And I guess maybe the reason why is because I try to scrub those things from my memory. I don't want those to affect me going forward. And so if, maybe I'm sure I've given up on some significant things, but nothing comes to mind.
Yeah.
Now I've given up on a lot of little things, right? And I can remember regretting it after giving up on it.
I think that the thing that comes to my mind is when I almost gave up on something. You know, I was signed up for the Chattanooga Ironman. Had a lot of stuff going on, and I mean, I probably had some pretty good reasons to not finish that. My dad was sick at the time, but I remember I was telling you about it, and your New Jersey love came out. You basically busted my chops and said, "You're going to regret this If you drop out of this, you're going to regret it. And I remember thinking, man, that was harsh. But I finished it. And I hit the goal that I had planned. And again, it's the reason we need to have people around us that tell us the truth, because I was blinded. I was tunnel visioned, and the few things I had going on, and I wasn't able to see the big picture. And you kind of drew that contrast for me. But I guess I don't give up on a lot of things because I'm not typically one to sign up for things. I probably count the cost too much.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to schedule. I look out and I say, am I really going to have time for this? So I probably don't take a leap into as many things as maybe I should, because I'm probably pretty conservative in counting the cost.
Yeah.
To a fault sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think we look at the word regret, and regret is it's a bad word. We look at it as being a negative word, and it certainly is and can be. But there's also another side to the regret word, right? Because,
wisdom.
Yeah, well, sometimes regret is a good thing because it drives you later toward other things, right? It drives you toward good things, and I think sometimes that's a good thing. I was in a corporate job here not terribly long ago, and because of the way that particular job that I was in for 25 years ended, it fundamentally changed the way that I do some things. Mm-hmm. Some things I'm just not as good at as I once was, mm-hmm. because I'm just kind of gun shy about things, right? There's other things though that it has just driven me to be better at. And so I always look at both sides, but try to find, that's why I say I don't think about the things I've given up on, because I'm always trying to figure out the better angle, the good angle, the positive angle, because there's a positive angle on just about anything that you do, right?
Yeah, for sure. Failure always has. Wisdom can only come from the failure of yourself or failure of others.
Yeah.
And so failure can be a good thing. Looking back.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing I will say about the consequences of giving up is you got to be careful with giving up, because it can become a bad habit.
Oh, for sure.
And you don't want to get there.
For sure.
So that's why it's important to follow through.
Yeah.
Last question. How can we daily prepare to win in promoting the cause of Christ?
So I went back to the golf course. My mind went back to the golf course with this question. And one thing that Danny always did as well is, it was a maintenance job. We were mowing and raking. There wasn't a lot of strategy, but every morning, all 15, 16 guys, we met in the shop, and Danny kind of gave us a pep talk. We talked to the leader every morning, and it made us do better at our job. And we need to talk to our leader every morning.
Yeah.
We got to connect with God every morning. That's how you win in this race we call the Christian life. Is you got to be connected to the leader. Just like, we could have all showed up and just went and done whatever, but we would have been mowing the greens too high and the fairways too short, without direction. And our direction comes from Christ.
Man.
And if you're not talking to him, then you're not getting the direction you need.
Man, that's so wise. The other thing that I thought about this story, I had a friend of mine that I worked with years ago that every conversation had God in it somehow. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of a comedian. So he used rapture references regularly in a joking way.
Yeah.
Right. But the interesting thing about him was that it always seemed to surprise me when it came up, mm-hmm. right? So if you think about it, there are certain things that I say, and when something happens, what my response is going to be. I'm going to use a particular phrase or whatever, and because there's a trigger mm-hmm. for it. There wasn't any trigger for him, right? There was nothing that was a regular thing that made him go in that direction. It was where his brain was always headed. And being relentless means you're always got the advancement of God's kingdom on your mind. And that's why it always came up in conversation, was because he was looking for a spot to put it. And if we're doing that and we're being relentless in that way, we're going to have a big impact for others.
It's a good word.
At Upward Sports and Run for God, we're all about helping you on your fitness journey. But we also want to support you on your faith journey as well. Sign up today for the self-paced Bible in a Year Challenge and listen every day as I read through the entire Bible in 365 episodes. As a bonus, I also give you running and walking tips of the day and finish with a different encouraging quote in each episode. You must be a Run Club member to participate in this exciting and edifying challenge. Sign up and start listening today. All right, so there's this kind of a sad story coming out of England and Africa. So there's this guy named Russell Cook who decided that he wanted to be the first person to run the full length of Africa. Now, that's about 9,000 miles, the full length of Africa. It is a big continent. This guy's from Worthing, West Sussex, England. So he started last kind of in the spring. And the plan called for 240 days of running and over 9,000 miles in distance, 360 marathons. And as of now, he has completed over 7,000 miles of it. He actually had to change his course in the middle of it, but that's another story. And this is what an article I found said. It said the extreme challenge began at South Africa's most southerly point on 22 April and will finish at Tunisia's most northerly point. In June, Mr. Cook and his team had cameras, phones, cash, and passports stolen in an armed robbery in Angola. He's been through a lot through this whole thing. Mr. Cook, nicknamed Hardest Geezer, I don't know where that came from, had originally aimed to cover 14,500 kilometers or 9,320 miles during the challenge, crossing 16 borders and through cities, rainforests, and the Sahara Desert. He had vowed not to cut his hair or trim his beard until he has completed the challenge. He does kind of look like Forrest Gump. The challenge is in aid of the Running Charity, which is a charity that uses running for troubled youth, which is cool. So I started out by saying this is a sad story. Well, why did I say that? Well, this is where we are today. This is a recent post from him. He said, "Right, girls and boys, we have a bit of a problem. We haven't been able to get visas for Algeria. And if we don't get them, then it's game over for Project Africa," he said. "I've been running now for 278 days, covering nearly 12,000 kilometers, which is 7,456 miles, through 13 countries, and raised over 140,000 pounds for charity in my attempt to become the first person ever to run the entire length of Africa. But right now, all of that is totally hanging on whether we can get permission from Algeria to let us cross in through this border with Mauritania. This is the only option we have left. So Algeria, if you're listening, please reach out to me. Anything you need from us, please let me know," he added, addressing the Algerian authorities. "It would be an absolute privilege to visit your beautiful country. To everyone following the journey online, please help us out by sharing this and helping us get this seen by the appropriate people in Algeria." And there are people trying to help him as he's about to cross the Sahara Desert. But while he's in that crossing of the Sahara Desert, he's got to cross into Algeria. And he can't get the stuff that he needs to do that. Isn't that sad?
That would be.
Of course, I don't know. It seems like, to your point, it seems like something you should have known before you got started.
Yeah.
But
it's a pretty big detail.
That's a pretty big detail. Yeah. But it appears, in looking this up, it appears that there have been no people to cross this border into Algeria on foot in a decades.
Really?
So people don't cross on foot into Algeria for whatever reason. I don't it's probably a political thing. I don't know. Man, I hope this guy can work it out though, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, good luck to him. All right. It's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something I've written about the intersection between running and faith. Well, you remember floaties or swimmies? Whatever you want to call those flotation devices we put on our arms as kids. Well, this is about them. This one's called water wings. Somewhere in the deep recesses of my brain, I was under the impression that water wings were invented in my lifetime. Now, I'm not a youngster by anyone's definition, but I was not even close on the invention date. In 1907, England added swimming to their school curriculum. The first iteration of the safety product was called Swim Easy Buoy and was a response to the concerns of parents over 100 years ago. They were very similar to the product we know today under several other names. Although some will say there are negatives to the use of the kid's device, many parents have been able to breathe easier knowing a child is being buoyed by the over a century-old product. Reassurance is a powerful notion. But we were never meant to wear these devices for long. Eventually, we learned to swim and have since never put them back on. But I see people still relying on old notions as runners. It's sort of like seeing a teenager in swimmies. For example, I have heard from a number of people that they simply cannot run for very long and must utilize the walk-run intervals. Now, let me be very clear. If you want to do the walk-run method, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're under the illusion that you cannot do anything else, you are probably still using your water wings. If you have had trouble staying injury-free, yet still think you have to run every run at a pace slightly slower than race pace, you are still using your inflatable armbands. Likewise, if you refuse to believe that carbohydrates are good fuel for running, you may want to look at your arms. You'll probably find some inflatable devices attached. We should always be looking to progress as runners and walkers. There may be new and better ways to do things, and you may be holding on to old ways. Those things can feel like Linus's safety blanket, but it may be time to move on and try swimming in open water. Even after 40 years of running and over 100,000 miles, I still try new things. I am currently on the longest streak of 10-plus mile days I've ever put together. Don't be afraid to try new things. It's fun to accomplish new things. We should also be progressing with our faith. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, Paul is telling the church that they are failing to progress in their faith because they are stuck on the basics. God has so much for them, but they can't get there because they won't move past old notions that have been debunked at this stage of their faith journey. Have you ever turned in the wrong direction because that's the way you normally go? Our brains are wired to hold on to the things we think. The only way to change those things is by being intentional about doing something different and progressing. In other words, we have to take off the water wings and go for a swim. Are you holding on to ideas and thoughts that are just habit? Do you struggle to progress in your fitness because you know you can't do more? There comes a time to take off the swim buoys and try something new. There comes a time when you need to stop relying on a flotation device because the feeling of swimming is so much better without them. Whether you're holding yourself back in your fitness or your faith, try taking off the swimmies and go for a swim. I know it's scary, but only at first. Once you experience life without them, you'll never be the same.
It's a great story, Dean. Yeah, I mean, I love how you lovingly are calling a lot of people out here, and I've said it myself. You know, we're building this house right now. Everybody's asking me when I'm going to sign up for the next thing, and I've said I don't have time for it right now. My priorities are somewhere else. But that's not true. I do have time. We all have 24 hours in a day. I'm just choosing, and I usually correct myself when I say that because I know that that's not true. I'm choosing other priorities right now, which is okay.
Right.
If you're walking, you're choosing to walk, and that's okay. But don't say I can't. So I can't is such a negative word.
Yeah.
Because we can do so many things, and I love how you just kind of call it out here. We revert back to some excuse that we either really don't believe ourselves, or we've said it so much we begin to believe it.
Yeah.
But it's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So great job here.
Well, I've had a couple occasions lately where I did something that pushed my body a little further than what conventional wisdom would tell me to do. Mm-hmm. So not too long ago, if you listen to the bonus podcast that Co-Booker, I ran with him back a little ways back, and we went for a run, and Co's faster than I am. And so we got to running a little faster on the way back in than I had intended to run. And it hurt. It hurt pretty bad.
Young kids.
But once I got in it and once I was doing it, I was like, let me just push a little harder. Right. And, we ran the last mile just crazy fast. And it was probably dumb, but I felt better the next day. I actually felt better after doing it. I was glad that I had done it, even though in the moment I thought this is a terrible idea, right? Yeah. And fast forward to last week, I just mentioned Travis and I going out for this track workout. I don't like running in the morning. My first thought when he said, "Hey, do you want to do a track workout with me?" was, "In the morning? No,
man, it was earlier.
I really don't want to." But then I thought, well, what excuse do I have not to do it? First of all, and I don't have an excuse not to do it. I could have made the excuse that I don't need to be running hard right now. But that wasn't a good excuse either, because it wasn't going to be a workout that was going to kill me. It was going to be up tempo. It was going to be hard for me to do, but it wasn't going to be terribly difficult. So I decided to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, then that morning comes, and what am I thinking in that morning? Why did I agree to do this? Oh my gosh, it's so early as I get up at, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning or something. But then when we got into it, that first rep, it felt terrible trying to run fast in the morning. I haven't done it in so long. But I was glad I did it.
Sure.
When I got through. A lot of us not progressing is due to us falling back on these excuses. Mm-hmm. It's too early. It's too cold. It's too hot. I don't run in the mornings. I feel a little bit under the weather. What are all the excuses? There's 100.
Or sometimes it's just ignorance. Sometimes it's, we used to deal with this with kids, especially, Dean, I can't run that fast. Well, we've been doing this a long time. We know what you do these runs at, which tells us you can do that. It's why I used to always say you never know how far you can go until you go too far. Sometimes we need to push ourselves. This is where failure can be a good thing.
Yep.
We need to push ourselves to failure so you know where that line is. But so many people say I can't do something and they've never even tried it. Mm-hmm. And there's not many things I'm scared to try.
Yep. That's
and
true.
I go down in the blaze of glory sometimes, but I know that line then. I know where that line is. Don't do that again. But so many people will say I can't when they've never even tried it. And that's not good.
No, it's not good. And we do the same thing with our faith, right?
Sure.
An example might be how many people listening to this podcast have never tried fasting? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who are Christians who have never tried fasting. I don't do it much. Mm-hmm. I should do more of it.
Sure.
Because when I have done it, it has been amazing. Mm-hmm. It's outside my comfort zone. And I don't want to feel hungry. I just don't want to. Mm-hmm. And that's why I don't do it. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? Well, you know what else? Jesus didn't want to go to the cross either, right? Jesus didn't want to be uncomfortable either. And think about, I'm worried about being a little hungry for a day, and he's going to a cross to die. Sure. It makes our excuses not to go out and try or do something look so pathetic.
Yeah.
And I think when we put things in its proper context very often, like the idea of, okay, I'm going to go out and try to do something I've never done before. Well, what's the worst that can happen? You can fail. Mm-hmm. You can not do it. So, like you said, you learned where the line is.
Right.
And so there's so much value in it. And that works in our faith too. And so, that's just one example, the fasting thing. There's so many others. Have you tried getting up every morning and spending a half an hour praying or in the Bible or doing something like that. Have you tried it? Because, if you haven't, man, it could change your life.
Yeah. All right. So here's where we usually take another break, but let's talk about the new bonus episode. We've kind of referred to it a few times, but we're trying something a little different.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that just a little bit for people who may not have heard that bonus episode. So what are you doing, Dean?
Well, there's a friend of ours, co-booker. He actually used to run for us at Cahulla Creek. I was coaching him for a few years, and he went to college, coincidentally, and had a college career. I still say that's because it was called co. I still tell him that. That's the only reason you went there. But he went there, and so he's a good runner. But he's also in his travels. First of all, his job works with technology that's related to a GPS watch, which is cool.
Yeah.
So it gives him, and he also travels all over the country, working at these big track meets and things. So he's very well connected to the elite world. And so we thought, we've got a segment of our listeners who like the 5 or 10 minutes we'll put in a podcast sometimes of what's going on in the professional world, and the more technical things. And we thought, well, why don't we just do a little separate thing for those people who enjoy that? And if if that's not your bag, fine, then don't listen to that. We still have this podcast. But if you want to dig a little bit deeper into what's going on in the professional world and what's going on technically with these little different things, running related things, then that second podcast may be for you.
Sure. Yeah, go check it out. It was a bonus episode. As of this recording, it was 2 episodes ago.
Right.
So go check it out. It's the bonus episode. I think you called it the year ahead and the year behind or something like that.
Yeah, there'll be 2 episodes.
But y'all did a great job. Co is quick on his feet.
He is.
He's in running and in podcasting. So you did a great job. So Co, if you're out there listening, great job, buddy.
Yeah. Well, we've also done a Olympic marathon trials preview as well.
Okay.
So by the time this comes out, the Olympic trials will have already been run.
Okay.
So check that out too.
Yeah.
All right. Every week I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. Well, how about this? It's good practice to get outside your comfort zone. We're just talking about how running presents you with all these opportunities to look your comfort zone in the face and completely ignore it. Well, I don't want to get up early. I don't want to run in the rain. I don't like the cold. I don't want to run 20 miles on Saturday. I don't want to shoot snot rockets out of my nose. Well, maybe that one we don't mind so much. But you get the point.
That's a competition in of itself.
Yeah, running or walking gives us opportunities to do things we don't feel like doing, and that bleeds over into everything else we do. So that makes running and walking awesome.
So I went out yesterday, talking about this. I went out yesterday afternoon, and I'm just walking right now, and I went out and I walking, and it was freezing. I mean, the wind yesterday afternoon was just howling. And I didn't want to be out there, but I went out there and I did it anyway. But you know what I appreciate? It makes you appreciate things you don't normally think about. You know what I appreciated? The warmth of a house when you walk in it.
Yeah.
There's not much better than coming in and you're freezing everything on your body and you walk in and it's like, oh. And so it makes you appreciate things you wouldn't normally appreciate.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Well, how about a trivia question for next week? Who won the 1960 Olympic Marathon, and what was unique about that win? Interesting story. Check that one out, the 1960 Olympic Marathon. And if you're the first person to answer that correctly at dean@runforgod.com, then you will win $20 off in the Run for God store. So get on that. Finally, a motivational thought of the week comes from John von Neumann. He said, "Today's impossible is tomorrow's normal."
That's running. That is running.
It? Yeah, it is. It is. And we see that all the time. 5K challenge. We got the marathon folks that are finishing up, and a brand new crop. That we're going to see lots of those stories where people are like, "Yeah, I remember when I couldn't run for 60 seconds, and now I'm running for 26.2 miles."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's still time to join, by the way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've always said if you're active and can walk, you can really join the Couch to Marathon really in the first several weeks, because it's the walk-run method for the first 7 weeks of the program. So, I mean, it is not too late to join. Go online. Or you can join the on-demand Couch to Marathon. So you may have a different marathon. Say you have a marathon in April of next year. Well, you can sign up in March for your own training plan, and you'll be kind of following along with other people around the country. They may be at different points in the journey, but again, it's not about the running when you come into this community. It's about the community of believers, like-minded people, and sharing and being inspired and inspiring others.
Amen. So get involved. Until next week, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.